Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of This Just In Radio. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. Today we're broadcasting live from Tampa, Florida in the Moffitt Cancer Center. We have a very special show as our next installment in our Cancer Innovation Series. Many thanks to longtime friends Dr. Kamal Jethwani and Dr. Nainesh Parikh for the invitation and opportunity to be here. We're about to embark on a series of episodes focused on cancer care, innovation, patient outcomes, and survivorship. I hope you find all these episodes as enlightening, as encouraging as me. Welcome back to This Just In Radio Show, broadcasting live from Tampa Palms Country Club and the Moffitt Cancer Center. Great to be back with you two gentlemen, Dr. Kamal Jethwani, Moffitt Vice President of Digital Ventures and the CEO of AccelerOnc, and Nainesh Parikh, Vice President of Chief and... We're going to start over again. Go ahead, Jake. You guys got the longest titles. Kamal's I'm used to. So Vice President, Chief Expansion and Partner Officer.
Just say Chief Clinical Expansion and Partnership Officer.
Chief Clinical Expansion. Say it again.
Chief. Start there.
Yeah.
And add clinical.
Chief Clinical Expansion Partner Officer.
Yeah.
Or in part. Okay.
It's technically partnerships, but it doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, this is what I pulled off on.
Or you could just say interventional radiologist.
No, I don't want to say that. All right. All right. Go ahead, Jake. Welcome back to This Just In Radio Show, broadcasting live from the Tampa Palms Country Club and the Moffitt Cancer Center. Very excited to be back with my two good friends in this Cancer Innovation Series, Dr. Kamal Jethwani, Moffitt's Vice President of Digital Ventures and the CEO of AccelerOnc, and Nainesh Parikh, Vice President and Chief Clinical Expansion and Partnership Officer. Welcome back to the show, gentlemen. Very excited to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, thank you.
Absolutely. This has been in the works for a long time. It is 8 a.m., so we're going to dive in pretty deeply here for so early in the morning, but I know we have a very busy day here. Before we dive in, what are you guys doing on site for the next couple of days? And you guys initially met yesterday here, but what were some goals for the next
this
day?
is our INE leadership retreat. So we're spending a couple of days with the entire team figuring out what we're going to do for the next 6 to 12 months.
Awesome.
Our fiscal year in Moffitt starts in July, so this is timely from that perspective. We've done a lot of work in figuring out how to get innovations out of the market, and this year or the next 2 years are going to be our way to sort of expand that.
Excellent. Well, I know we're going to dive into a lot of those different types of innovations and best practices over the next couple of hours, so stay tuned certainly for that. Since we last spoke at the Cancer Act's leadership meeting, what has changed most noticeably in oncology innovation landscape? What's accelerated and what's surprised you, Dr. Jethwani?
Yeah, so I think AI continues to be an interesting lever, and I think that more and more people are starting to realize that AI can do things that, or holds the promise and actually is delivering on some of the promise. Some of that is the hype curve, and we're starting to see some of that realization come out in the market as well. It's like, oh, it's not perfect. Surprise, surprise.
Absolutely.
So I think those are good signals in the market. Specifically from an oncology perspective, we continue to see a lot of momentum on new discoveries and new drugs. Most notably, we'll talk about, I know, the ASCO announcement, right?
Yep.
There are things that we're working on today as an industry that are absolutely transforming lives and will give us, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years more to live than we had even 6 months ago. The real question is, how do we distribute it and how do we make sure that it's accessible to people?
Love it. And we're going to dive into more of that as well. So, Dr. Parikh, from a clinical expansion and partnership standpoint, what are some of the new and the most promising collaborations that you're seeing out there taking shape?
Sure. So I'll take the opportunity in just a moment to also bring up Cancer X because I think that's one of the most innovative ones.
Absolutely.
And, we started it 3 years ago, but continues to be one of the most innovative public-private partnerships. But I would break these down into a few different flavors. In the first place, it's not just about, a patient grab, if you will, from the health system perspective. I think there's interesting models across the country being developed between healthcare systems, between industries, and just kind of generally speaking, even between payers and providers. So, for example, Philadelphia, they've got a system where all three major academic centers have kind of come together with a shared data governance model. And what they're trying to do is essentially say, listen, we need to get our city taken care of. We're going to kind of reduce our financial incentive, and rather than compete, we're going to figure out how to really solve equity, right? I think that's an example of health systems saying we all are facing the same problems. We're facing financial pressures. We're facing an aging population. We're facing younger people getting cancer. How do we actually take care of these patients? So that's one example of how things are shifting. I think we're going to see more of that come up. I think those are really innovative leaders that are doing things like that. I think you're also seeing major systems activate partnerships or models with community access. And as we've talked about before on the show, your cancer mortality can be sometimes predicated upon your zip code, which is scary, right? So how do we really elevate that level? How do we bring things? Kamal just talked about it. How do we bring new therapies? How do we bring care pathway compliant decision making to people in the community? And I think we're really starting to see people build models out. Whether it's, I think they did this in Boston first, but there's been papers studied where the academic centers will hand over control for cell therapy to community providers, and then the community providers will plug those patients right back in. There's some questions to be answered around financial incentives, but truth be told, that might be a model that really allows us to take care of patients across the nation because so many of our patients need care in the community. So I think those are just two exciting examples of ways in which people are starting to think differently, especially given margin pressure, given complexity of care, given the exquisite kind of crush on inpatient beds and inpatient capacity in the face of shortages of labor.
Yeah, and I love that and we are going to touch on that more deeply because I want to dive into, certainly if you're not near a major cancer center, how can you get access to amazing treatment? Certainly a lot of people live in rural areas. So I know we're going to dive into that also later on. Dr. Jethwani, real quickly, on AccelerOnc and Moffitt's digital ventures, they're moving fast. Without giving out some IP, what's some of the most exciting innovations that you've seen or you're part of or you're about to launch in the next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, our learnings in the market in the last 6 or 7 months has been a few things. One, you do not solve the chaos we have in healthcare by creating more chaos. And by that, what I mean is you cannot solve this with a lot of more point solutions.
Yep.
I think that the approach we have of bringing different solutions together on the same platform, I think seems to hold a lot of water. I joke a lot of times that people are more excited about the box, not the toy. Right.
Very
people
true.
are excited about the fact that we're delivering something on a unified platform, that it's a single point of integration, and I think some of those things are important. Another thing that we're seeing a lot is people want outcomes. They don't really care about tools.
Yes.
And so how do you actually position yourself and how do you position these tools as a way to achieve outcomes? And you bring the tools together in a way that can give you the outcomes you need rather than getting you excited about a single tool like a scribe tool or something like that, right? So I think our positioning on that is evolving, and I think that's pretty exciting. But I think if you can solve people's problems without adding to it and without creating more work and more chaos, I think that's when you really win in this transformation exercise.
Love it. So let's dive into the patients. I always like to bring this aspect up because part of my listenership, a lot of clinical leadership, but also I have a lot of patients that have been tuning in now, certainly on the cancer side, innovation side, and what they can look forward to and some encouragement. And I love encouragement. So if you had to point to one advancement, clinical, digital, or operational, that gives a patient the most reason for optimism today, what would it be and why? And we'll start off with you as an interventional radiologist.
Sure. So I would point specifically to clinical, and this doesn't have anything to do with AI. It's the targeted therapies, right? The ASCO breakthrough around the KRAS mutation targeted therapy from Revolution Med is incredible. In fact, my mom was on it. I got her on it, about 8 months before she passed. I took her to Texas so that she could get on it because even back then I knew how innovative this solution was. It's not, great for the company, great for patients, but it's not actually just the company. It's the fact that we are rapidly shifting towards targeted therapies for patients so that we're actually focusing on precision medicine, right? What's your mutation? What's the folded protein? How do we actually get a drug? And to date, or really until this company figured out the key, it was very hard to focus on a KRAS mutation and be able to get therapies directly at the cellular level to focus on that, and especially in the face of significantly unacceptable side effects. Right. The fact that, to Kamal's point, is it going to add 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, especially of productive life? Those would all be great. Obviously, we're not necessarily getting towards cure for metastatic disease, but I do think that is really a weather vane and a beacon for what's to come in the next decade. And I think if AI can supercharge folded proteins, how we unlock those targets, I think that's the most exciting.
That's awesome. Kamal, what are some of your thoughts from your perspective?
Yeah, I echo Nine's thoughts. I think a lot of the innovations that are coming out are groundbreaking. I think that the discovery engine is working. We know that 30 to 40% of the money that's going into discovery in the next 10 years is all going in oncology. So I think exciting times. Was it last year we had 55 new drugs approved? So there's a lot happening. But let's not forget the fact that even today, only 20% patients who are eligible for precision therapy are getting it.
Right.
We got to solve that.
So I was going to be the flip side of the coin, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but I think the downside of all of this is since it was announced, at ASCO, and even right before that, I normally get probably 5 patient calls a month, either friends of friends or friends of friends of friends. Hey, what would you do? Hey, can we get this patient into Moffitt? In the last 3 months, the number of advanced pancreatic cases that I've received is very high, unfortunately. Oh, wow. The number of times I've said, yeah, I think RMC makes a lot of sense for you, right? The issue is, and I don't have a suggestion for how to solve this, but the biggest thing I think facing our patient population now is there's all this excitement, everybody knows, and yet there's this holding period.
Right.
There's this interim period where it's not approved, it's not commercially available. There's expanded access programs, which are very hard to access. I can't necessarily blame the company. I know they're trying to do what they're trying to do, and they've at least created an incredibly scientifically advanced product. I don't know that I can blame the FDA. So really where I'm concerned on the flip side is how do we actually, to Kamal's point, get commercial distribution, commercial approval of these medications out so people can start using them even first line. Mm-hmm. And I think that's honestly a lot of patients would echo that sentiment because in my inbox, unfortunately, once a month, this is happening.
Absolutely. And I'll throw you both a curveball. You may or may not know the answer because I just came back from Capitol Hill last week. Had some updates. Have you guys seen or read anything about the FDA? Are we moving things a little bit more quickly now? Things slowing down a little bit. Do we have an opinion? Do we know? I have not tapped into the FDA side of the house.
I don't personally know. What I can say is even at our CancerX events and around kind of the general sentiment is that it's still moving too slowly. Now, as compared to 5 years ago, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But all things being equal, there's a feeling that we really should be moving more quickly as compared to where we were and we're not.
Yep. Okay, fair. So going on to the virtual care side and remote care, it's certainly changing patient experience, particularly for patients who don't live near major cancer centers. Give me some optimism there and what maybe evolutions have happened in that area.
So I think a number of companies are now working on this idea of bringing the best kind of treatment or the best guidelines or the best recommendation for treatment to the physician's office. I think that is an exciting move. Lots of companies now, even within CancerX that we've seen, Healthier Oncology, Radical, it's a couple others, right, that are working on this idea of how do we bridge the gap between knowledge and implementation of the knowledge, which I think is exciting. 80% of our patients get treated outside of the AMCs, right? And so we need these pieces of information or knowledge bases to reach them, I think, which is exciting. The other thing that holds a lot of these back is the ability to operationalize some of these treatments. So as an example, if you think about advanced therapies, right, CAR T is extremely complicated, especially in the outpatient setting and really complicated to deliver in a community setting. So a lot of patients would have to travel to academic centers for that. We're now seeing a lot of move, both from policymakers as well as from pharma companies, to move that to the community. Right. So now, can you help them operationalize it? Can you help them actually launch these sites? Can you help them actually safely deliver these care points? And overlapping with virtual care, in my mind, provides the safety blanket for some of these things to happen in the community, right? Because you don't have the need for a lot of inpatient care because now you're able to sort of manage patients more at the home. So if you really truly think about like the clinic of the future, I think the clinic of the future is at the house or in the community. The clinic of the future is not another fancy glass building in the middle of the city, right? So if you kind of follow that line, I think digital health, virtual care, AI is what is going to help us enable the clinic of the future, right? So how do we, for example, use remote monitoring creatively? How do we be in touch with our patients? How do we use continuous wearables? How do we use all these things to be able to deliver some of these modalities safely in the community, in the home, and how do we make sure the patients are comfortable where they are? I think those moves are going to be really important. So in the next 10 years, if we can do that. And on top of all of this, not only is it about patient convenience and other things, anything delivered in the community is about 20 to 30% cheaper.
Right.
Just by the nature of the site.
Right.
And the reimbursement rates and whatnot, right? So if you think about it, it's a quadruple win, right? We're delivering at lower cost. Patients are happier. They're getting the care the way they want. And we're probably making more life-saving treatments available to people where they are.
Right. That's awesome. Anything you want to add on to that, Nain?
Yeah, I think all of that's accurate. I agree 1,000%. I think the hard part is, patients who want to access that top-level care, how do they know what that is represented by? Meaning, in Florida, we've only got a couple of NCI-designated comprehensive cancer centers. Right. And Florida's a big state with a lot of people. So if you're 4 hours away from a comprehensive cancer center, how do you access that site before you get to that cascade of issues? How do you make sure you're plugged in so that your workup's correct, your diagnosis is correct, and your decision-making is correct from the top, right? Because all of that's great, but the implication is that all of it starts with the correct diagnosis, workup and diagnosis. I think that's, something that we still suffer from and we still have to solve. But what's encouraging to me is that, even companies in our cohort, there are companies in the CancerX cohort that are solving transportation issues for patients. There are companies that are educating patients. The fact that patients now more than ever, for example, I just gave the example about the Revmed medication.
Yep, absolutely.
The fact that patients know about their options and patients are demanding, I think they're pulling a lot of things forward. They're really pulling issues to the forefront. I actually think that's the biggest change that I've seen really in my lifetime, that patients are now demanding, with the information, companies, products available, they're demanding that top-line therapy be accurate, that their diagnosis be accurate. And I actually think that is going to represent a large shift, in how we do things. Because even though, yes, AMCs are trying to reduce the gap, we're trying to get care out into the communities, I actually think patients and companies who focus on patients and getting their care kind of pulled forward, meaning getting their diagnosis correct earlier,
right.
I actually think that's the most exciting.
I love that. No, I absolutely love that. And that also, when you have a patient engaged like that, you're going to start to flip the model as well. And I believe they're obviously they care about the care more, and they're going to hold the people accountable too. And again, knowledge is power in that regard. Let's jump over to some of the hype around AI. I mean, obviously, we see it every single day. We actually, we're pretty knee deep in it. AI is everywhere right now. Where is it generally improving patient care and outcomes, and where is the hype still ahead of the curve there?
So I usually split the world into sort of, if you think about the applications of AI, clinical applications, sort of operational/administrative applications,
Yes.
right, and patient-facing. So if you kind of split it in that way, I think that the operational implementation type of use cases are probably the most ready for prime time. I think they require lesser validation, lesser confirmation. It's a lot more about taking a broken workflow and fixing it with AI and making a few of the steps easier. So I've seen a lot of success in that area, and I think those are easy enough to do. Clinical applications need a lot more validation. There's a lot more trust building needed. Do I think that AI will deliver on it? I think it will. Right. Do I think that we're ready for it today? Maybe we're not, right? But I think we're getting there pretty fast. The bigger issue with that side of the use cases is less the technology, more the change management. It's convincing people that it's okay, that they're not going to lose their jobs, that it is accurate, that it's doing no harm, right? And that there are a new way of thinking or a new way of delivering care is actually fine. And not only is it fine, but it is needed, right? Given the paradigm we're coming into with the amount of demand we have and the lack of supply, we will not be able to practice and we will not be able to deliver care to all the patients that need it without AI.
Correct. Yeah.
So there's more change management needed on that side. Patient-facing, surprisingly, it's really it's picking up significantly faster than I thought it would. People are so burnt out with their expectations not being met within healthcare.
Absolutely.
That they're gravitating towards anything that's convenient, even if it may not be accurate, right? 20 years ago, I remember when I was in Boston, one of the larger health systems, we did a 50,000 person survey within the Boston area to be like, how do you choose your doctor, right? We do this DIP survey every 5 years. And consistently, every single time, it was like the brand. Where was the doctor trained? The Harvard
you spoke
brand.
about that when I met you at the think tank in 2017.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
And we started seeing that shift. So from 2005, every 5 years doing the survey, right? our last one, I think 2015 or 2016, we started seeing an actual shift where people were like, a majority of people said convenience,
That's right.
not brand.
Yeah.
They're like, a doctor is a doctor is a doctor. No offense, but it's like, but do I have to take half a day off of work?
Right.
Do I have to travel 2 hours? Do I have to wait for him? Does he treat me well?
Right.
Right. Like, is a lot of that playing into this new consumer's mindset?
Absolutely.
So now when you have an Oura ring telling you you're pregnant or you have cancer before your doctor's telling you, or telling you that you need to go and see someone because something's off with you, people are really gravitating towards that. Look at the amount of money that Hims and Hers has made
Right.
in just providing convenience, right?
Right.
It's Viagra for $1 a day at your doorstep.
Yep.
Who knew there were 5 million men that had that unmet need that were gonna make this a $300 million business overnight?
Yeah.
So I think that.
By the way, the practicing doctor here did know that. But anyways, that's different. That's different.
But I think that there is a unmet need around meeting our people where they need
Absolutely
it, and I think AI is going to enable us to do that.
So I think that builds on what we were talking about just a minute ago, which is to say that the engagement on behalf of the patient and those products and companies that are out forward-facing on the patient side, and again, we've seen this within the CancerX cohort, those companies, I think, and that interaction is getting catalyzed and supercharged, to the same level that you see the PE ratios be skyrocketing, right? For those AI companies. I think that's linked and that makes sense. As a practicing physician, I think we're way behind. I think it's all hype right now, unfortunately.
Right.
Even the ambient listening tools, they're great, but are they really going to disrupt your workflow in such a way that all of a sudden you're free? You've got hours back in the day.
Right.
None of that's happened.
Right.
Even in the operating room or in the interventional suites, all of the tools that people are talking about to build in making your life easier, they really sound great. But have they been adopted? Where's the money coming from? How do we pay for it? How does that mean that we're actually going to get time back versus we're just going to do more, right? That's the question, to Kamal's point, that I think needs to be answered. And I would be just a touch more pessimistic to say those are really
You're always
tough.
more pessimistic.
Well, that's true. But I mean, I think at the healthcare system level, those are really hard questions to answer because the financial pressures are real. And how many times are we going to get into the loop of, well, this is a cost savings measure, right? So we're going to split that cost savings and you give us a little bit and you'll get the rest. That's still, I do think health systems are becoming wise to that tale and are saying, are we sure that that's going to happen? So again, I think lot of hype around the clinical workflows. I don't think we're there yet. I think he's right. I think, clinicians are, and maybe this is true for researchers, I'm not sure, clinicians are still not clear about what needs to be, quote, validated. I actually have a different opinion, and maybe this is more optimistic. I think it should be wide open. I don't think clinical validation is necessary. I think just like we use it in our personal lives, if the clinician is ultimately making the decision, you should just turn it on and let things go, right?
That's a great perspective.
I just think, what clinical validation is necessary? And particularly if patients are, clamoring.
Right, absolutely true.
Then why should it matter? So in my mind, I actually think we should just turn things on and let the quote free markets decide.
Love it. So in the last couple minutes we have in this first segment, and this is now shifting to more some thought leadership and visionary, because you both are visionaries. Looking 2 to 3 years out, what capability does every major cancer center need to have built or be actively building to remain at the frontier? And I'm sure we just touched on a little bit of that, but what are your thoughts? I'll start off with you, Kamal.
Traditionally, we have all thought about our brand, our physical footprint as our differentiators. We need to stop doing that. Your differentiator is the people, the physician, intellect, the expertise. Package that, make that available. If that's how you're going to think about it, you can expand, you can grow, you can stay in the business. My chief medical officer back at Mass General, who I reported to, who was awesome, always said, Kamal, there is a 22-year-old across the river in a basement at MIT building a business that's going to put us out of business. Right. And everybody laughed at him 10 years ago. No one's laughing.
Yeah, exactly. Great point.
So I think recruitment of talent is absolutely key. I agree with Kamal completely, and I think that's probably 80%. And when we look at it, I think at Moffitt, or if I were looking at it, across any system, what are the values in your clinicians that you want to highlight? To Kamal's point, right? It's not just about the brand that you're bringing, but within your subspecialties, within your patient interactions, your cultures, whatever it is, I think there's got to be a clear point around the values and the characteristics of the types of clinicians you're hiring. At the same time, I think to be at the forefront, creating either the orchestration layer or the package of tools that each of your clinicians can have to take care of patients virtually is going to be the thing that wins, in my opinion. And so it can't just be Zoom appointments.
Right.
Whether it's remote patient monitoring for medical oncologists, it's the ability to quickly see and take care of patients remotely when you're a surgeon and have videos to document everything they're doing so that you can see more patients and get things followed up more quickly. Have those communication platforms more easily addressable. Portals for patients just don't make sense anymore, right? So I think the institutions that can solve that in the next 15 years will be at the forefront.
I love it, Nine. And that actually is a great place for us to stop, because that's exactly what our next section is going to be on, innovation and best practices. And so you just led us perfectly into the next session. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. And that's a wrap from here at Moffitt Cancer Center. Many thanks to my good friends Kamal and Nainesh for joining me. A great spectrum of shows covering cancer innovation, best practices, but also the key to success, happiness, and the importance of mentoring. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here, and look forward to many more shows coming from this campus and probably Tampa in general, as these good friends and I look to bring this great content to you. And hopefully you find it as, again, encouraging and enlightening as myself. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much.